Hey gamers, this is Liz Davidson from Beyond Solitaire, and today I want to talk about a game called Aleph Null. This is a game designed by Tony Boydell. It is published by Capstone games, and it is a game about summoning Baphomet. But I wanted to use this to inaugurate, like, maybe what'll be a new series in the channel that I'm just going to call Board and Book, because this game is based partially on actual, folklore and thoughts about magical practice, but it's refracted through some novels. So the introduction by the designer for Aleph Null says that James Blish was an author of incredible breadth and imagination, but basically this game is inspired by his After Such Knowledge series, and there are 4 books in that series. So there's Dr. Mirabilis, A Case of Conscience, Black Easter, also called Faust Aleph Null, I think that's the subtitle, and its sequel, The Day After Judgment. And these are all books that kind of deal with the devil, with magic, with souls that are saved or not saved. And I'm actually in the middle of a reading project of these because of this game. And so I have read Black Easter and a chunk of Dr. Mirabilis. I have got The Day After Judgment incoming in the mail, and it took me a bit to source an affordable copy. So I will report on that later. But basically, this is a game that's deeply embedded in sort of the lore of a book series. And I thought that was super interesting. And I wanted to look at the game, talk to you a bit about how it's played, and then also just sort of discuss its rootedness in its source material. One thing that I may need to come back to after reading The Day After Judgment is Boydell's statement here that the subject matter for Aleph Null will be disturbing to some, I'm sure, but at its heart, it is a paean to humanity. It is redemption. I am not sure about the redemption part. We could talk about that. I'm going to talk a little bit about Black Easter. But first, I just want to show you the game and how thematic it is for such a little tiny card game. So again, as you can tell from the subject matter, you've got some people who are in the middle of a casting. They've got their Grand Magic Circle. They've got their little tools, and they are trying to get something done. I'm very tickled by the little Frosted Games logo showing up here because it just looks like it doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the picture, but I'm here for it. So this is actually a super simple game. The rulebook describes the turn structure, but if you want card details, there's actually a little index of cards that is also printed on cards. So that is something that is very much worth looking at for you if you are looking to better understand how each of the cards works, how they interact, and like how to get stuff done within the game. The other thing that's kind of fun is that the setup every time is described in your Grimoire Wareham. So basically we've got this little lectern stand, which is like my favorite kind of fun little flavor inclusion in a game in a while. And you just turn the little cards like they're pages. So these are the difficulty levels. You start with Circle of the Adept, and you can work all the way up to Circle of the Prince. But basically the way this works is you're going to take interference cards of different configurations. So obviously level 1 interference cards are simpler to deal with than level 3. And you are going to make a little deck of those. You're going to add them between specific hours of the game. And in the upper levels, you're adding them between every single hour of the game. So basically each time you go through your deck, it causes the hour to pass. And so when you work through this, you have to advance the hour. You start the game with all of the cards, but in order to actually summon Baphomet here, what you need to do is you need to sacrifice Book of Pacts, Wand of Power, and Grand Circle, each of which has its own summoning challenges. But you also, by the time you summon Baphomet, need to have all of your cards out of play. So that means nothing that's in your play area, nothing that's in your deck, nothing that's in your hand. You want to get rid of all of the cards by the time Baphomet shows up, if you can get him to come at all, because otherwise you're going to lose points and possibly die. So as you might have guessed from the way difficulty works, this game is divided into hours. So at sunset, you've got the preparation of the operator with like a fun little Goethe quote, and then some instructions for what to do when the deck is depleted. Then you just kind of go through more steps. So the curfew bell, you have the fasting of the Tannists. So fasting is something that's big in a lot of religious practices. It's also very, very heavily mentioned in Black Easter, which we're about to talk about. So all of these little choices do kind of call back to the book. And if you've read it, you're going to kind of see more in the game than you do if you haven't read it yet. So I played the game, read the book, and then played the game again. And my post-book plays have definitely felt a bit richer. Then you have to go to the fumigation of the artifacts. So again, if you're going to use a magical artifact, you can't just pick it up and use it. You have to fumigate it between rituals. So that is a callback to that activity. The exorcism of the water. The reading of the pacts and signs. So if you have pacts with demons, you got to read from that book of pacts, which is also in the deck. And then the last conjuration. This is your last ditch effort to get Baphomet out. So as we look through the deck, you're going to see cards that are quite thematic. So you've got the Book of Pacts, the Grand Circle, the Wand of Power. So these are the things that I just popped on top last time because I successfully summoned Baphomet. But you've also got these other cards that just kind of represent neat little magical artifacts that you are using to power other cards, to summon things. You know, the chasuble is a garment that you would wear. You've got a bunch of Tannists in here who are going to help you with your work and then get sacrificed. Oops. You've got a besom, so a witch's broom, some candles, some salamanders, interesting little artifacts, including a deck of cards, which I thought was quite fun, a Boline, and actually have Actoi, who is like a little demonic cat in the books that eats human flesh. You know, what you gonna do? But basically to play the game, you shuffle these all together. You draw 5 cards each round. And then you figure out what you can do with these different things. So I can't summon Baphomet right now, so it's just going to go to discard. But I can, for 0 cost, summon these wax candles and my wealthy Tannist. So basically, if I scrap these, which basically means put them in the discard pile, then I gain a magical power that I can use to pay for more expensive cards. If I sacrifice these, that means that they permanently leave the game. You can't sacrifice something just because you want to. You have to do it based on whether you have a sacrifice action available. So one thing to note is that this is a deck kind of deconstruction game where you want to think about what you need to keep in your deck for as long as possible because you might need the resources, but then you're also going to have to start sacrificing stuff from here. But since I maybe don't want to sacrifice my Tannist and pay 2 for a Golem right now, these could just go to discard. I'll draw 5 cards and keep going. Then at various points when I advance the hours, I might put some interference into the deck. So one of the reasons I'm not doing too much gameplay in this video is partially because I want to talk about the book in a second. I want to kind of keep on theme. But also because I actually think that discovering this game on your own makes it more interesting because it does feel like you are a magical practitioner who is dabbling with powers that are a little bit beyond you and you're figuring out how to harness them. So spending that time exploring the deck and figuring out the card combinations and getting better at the game is fun just in a puzzly way. But I actually do think that it's pretty thematic in the sense that, you know, magical practice is not supposed to be an easy thing and it's something that is mysterious. And so those early plays, I actually think are almost better than later plays where you kind of know what's going on already because that feeling of gaining mastery over an otherworldly deck that is going to kind of pierce you occasionally, I think is very exciting in terms of gameplay. And so I still like the game, but in some ways I miss the romance of my early plays where I was learning how to do this. So just really quick, I don't want to spoil the book entirely because I think you should read it. Actually, it's pretty good and it's just downloadable. It's out there as an ebook. It's not one of the ones that's out of print. I read James Blish's Black Easter before making this video, and it is a very, very interesting book. It is about an arms dealer who tests and then makes a deal with a black magician who he at first doubts, but then he realizes that the guy actually has capabilities, and then things just continue to descend from there. But basically the premise of this game, which is that you're summoning Baphomet, is not quite what happens in the book, but the idea is that you're trying to summon demons and unleash them on the world. And so that is definitely what you're trying to do in this game with the summoning of Baphomet. And so, you know, some of the practices, the tools, the Tannists, and the goals really, really echo that book. So I will say the book is interesting, not just because it is about summoning demons, but because of the larger themes at play. So one thing is interesting, you know, Boydell talks about, you know, at its heart, it's a paean of humanity. It is redemption. I am really not convinced of that at this point in my read. Like, maybe I need to finish the series in order to come to that opinion. But right now, I feel that the world of Black Easter is quite bleak. I won't spoil anything for you, but, you know, messing with demons is something that's often punished in literature, and Black Easter is not really any different. It's just interesting how it happens. But what I did think was really interesting about Black Easter was, one, sort of the pact between heaven and hell so that white and black magicians can't interfere with each other. So there are monks who practice a kind of magic that is a special dispensation, but you can tell that they're really, really uncomfortable with some of the proceedings of Black Easter, and they also can't do anything about it, which I thought was really fascinating. It's sort of like a problem of evil examination that happens in the book that was definitely of interest if you like those kinds of conversations. And the other thing that I thought that the book brought out that was quite fascinating was sort of getting into the reasons why someone would become a black magician and sell their soul to the devil. Because if you think there's a devil and it's obvious that there's heaven and hell, like, why would you risk yourself like that? I think it's a question that I've always had when I'm reading religious literature. And I thought that Black Easter did a good job of trying to get at that without making it too, like, unconvincing. So the black magician in this book not only lures other people to practice with him, which is really interesting. Like, these people know that they're getting into something pretty dark and they just do it anyway. But he has his own reasoning for wanting to be involved. And a lot of it kind of boils down to curiosity and the desire to know how the world and the universe work and wanting that hands-on understanding of that. And, you know, of course, he mentions, I think everybody mentions, right? Like, there's always the hope that you can get your soul saved at the last second because God might save you if you time your repentance appropriately. But I really enjoyed kind of the tension between people who were into black magic sort of for the chaos, and then people who were into it because they were really down the rabbit hole of wanting to touch deeper parts of the universe and to feel agency and understanding in a larger perspective than what we as humans typically have access to. So the book itself was just a really good romp. Like, it was a really fun read. You know, it had its moments that didn't age super well, like the occasional casual misogyny or whatever. But honestly, I never let that get in the way of my reading enjoyment unless it's truly egregious. This was not. And I was just fascinated all the way through by the ways that people wanted to interact with the magic in the books. So as I mentioned, I'm actually partially through a reading project where I want to read the rest of this little book series. So as I've mentioned, I want to finish reading the After Such Knowledge series. Once I do that, I might make a short video revisiting this game and kind of thinking about whether reading the rest of the books changed my opinion. But Black Easter is definitely the one that Aleph Null is based on. You can tell partially from that subtitle, Faust Aleph Null, but also the practices that you're engaging in the game very much match what's happening in the book. So I can see this subject matter being distasteful to some players, but I thought it was a very interesting experience, especially after I went and read the book and came back to playing the game. This is one that I will definitely keep around for, like, curiosity and amusement reasons, and also because it'll be fun to break it back out occasionally after my skills with it have declined, so that I can experience that kind of relearning feeling again. So that is Aleph Null by Tony Boydell. It is based on James Blish's Black Easter. And if you want me to do more board and book videos where I look at board games that are based on books and talk a bit about both, I would actually be interested in expanding that myself. So thank you so much for watching. Definitely feel free to like, comment, and ask questions. And most of all, happy gaming, everybody.